Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower class and social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air. Fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids, no one makes countries. Lie to your face, fight and die. Cause God forgive. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower class and social side, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. See their shit, force of air. Fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids, no one leaves countries. Lie to your face, fight and die, cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Good morning, or afternoon, I guess. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. The show is called Game On. The network is UCY.TV, the best little network on the internet, bar none. I really appreciate this place. And I don't get beat up too much here. Sometimes, a little bit, but not too much. Most of the listeners here get it. And so I always ask the listeners of UCY.TV to run out to the four corners of the earth and tell everyone to tune in to UCY.TV. And they can use an app called TuneIn, or they can use Shoutcast, or they can go to iTunes, I guess, and listen to these shows. So it's not like you got to be here today, right now. The archives go up moments after the shows are over. So nobody's got any excuse not to be moving this stuff around. And I'm not just talking about my show. There's some really good shows on here, and they need to get moved out. The people are waking up. It's taken them a long time. It's like kind of Rip Van Winkle there. And when they open up their eyes, I mean, when they actually begin to see and start to awaken from the stupor they've been in for a very long time, it kind of throws them a little bit, but as they rub the sleep out of their eyes, they start to kind of tune into what they're looking at now. Not what they thought they were looking at, not the dreamland they've been living in their entire lives, the actual reality of the life that they're leading, and how we have to correct it. So that's all good. It's all very good. Like I mentioned last night on the show, I still don't know what Valentine's Day looks like at the public school. It's got to be one screwed up mess now. I mean, how do you have these little children handing out Valentines? When they get this new sex ed program going, when they're told there's sexual entities from the time they're born, and so you got these little kids in kindergarten and grade 1 and grade 2 and 3 and that being taught very explicit garbage. Which has nothing to do with a child's mind. It's not something that's in a child's mind. Happy Valentine's. I feel like a boy today, even though I look like a girl, or I'm really attracted to you because you're a little boy like me, or a little girl like me, or whatever. It's got to be screwed up, and we got to unscrew this situation. And the only one that can do it are the people. We've allowed the school boards to control the children. and the curriculums are concocted by the most evil people on the planet. So that's what your children get taught. They get taught wrong history. Now I've seen some of these Common Core math problems, and I taught myself just to run with 10. I just use the number 10, and it works perfect. And we were taught in school how to back check when we did a math problem so that we would know whether or not we had it correct or not. So it was you do your problem out and you back it up, and you don't come up with the number you started with, then you know the answer's wrong. It's pretty simple. Math was actually quite simple, and now they've made it so damn difficult that the children are having massive headaches trying to figure this mess out, which is just another mind screwing that the children are taking. And but then that gives the school more opportunity, once they get the kids all stressed out, to offer them some pharmaceuticals to calm them down. And I'm sure the teachers are wound on these pharmaceuticals as well, because what mentally competent person could teach this garbage in the school and not stand up and say, who the hell came up with this? I ain't teaching this garbage because it is of no use to anybody, right? No, they don't do that. They probably just take the pharmaceuticals the teachers do, and they just bow down and teach what they're told to teach because there's a pension at the end of it they put their 30 years in or whatever. So the teachers do not have a vested interest in the children. They have a vested interest in their pensions. Now, these same teachers that are teaching the kids about being green are so heavily invested in the fossil fuel industry, it's retarded. These children that teach the children not to smoke are totally invested in the tobacco industry. Talk about hypocrisy. But that's the world we live in. Anyways, I've been saying for a long time now, and I'm just gonna run this through, because this is why you can never stop, right? You can't stop until we've completed our mission, if you will. We cannot stop. It's been a constant learning thing that I've been on, and I had problems with a bank way back in the late 80s, I think it was, or early 90s, somewhere in there. And so I was trying to get this sorted out. So the bankers are a bit of dicks. And so I phoned the ombudsman for the TD Bank, and I said, well, you can't really help me out anyways, can you? How do you do that? Well, we're independent. Okay, you're independent of the bank that you're the ombudsman for. Now, that doesn't make any sense. How is it you're telling me you're independent? Who pays you? I mean, who's paying you? It looks to me like the bank's paying you. Well, they are. Well, then how can you say you're independent? You cannot be independent if you're taking a paycheck from the bank I'm fighting with. You can't be independent. Okay, you have a vested interest in working for the bank because they're paying you. And if you were doing your job and were acting as an independent, then you would be bitch slapping the bank, but you're not. Okay, so you're basically just the role of the gatekeeper again, a paid gatekeeper. Smoke and mirrors, a misdirection kind of thing, like magic. And so you can't be independent. So we went through this. We finally got it cleaned up and backed bankers out there after a 3-month squabble with them. They finally relented and backed out. And a lot of people thought that was a big win. I just don't like problems. And I believe if there's a problem, there's a solution to the problem. And so we got that solved out, and we came out smelling good. Now, I didn't know at that point what I know today. And I've made an awful lot of phone calls, from the federal Justice Department to the lieutenant governors and the governor generals, and all sounds kind of military when you think about it. And but these aren't things, we were taught that the governor general, is a very important, yada 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 yada, and all this stuff we were taught in school, and it goes in one ear and it kind of goes out the other, but it does stick in there. That's what you were told. And we believed it. And we believed we were an independent country, which we're not. We were told all kinds of good stuff, but then we didn't have anything to do with making the curriculum, and neither did the teachers that taught us what they taught us have anything to do with making the curriculum. They were the Charlie Brown teachers, right? And they just puked this stuff out at us, and they didn't want to know anything. They didn't want any tough questions. They looked very down upon tough questions, or not even tough questions, just legitimate questions. They didn't want to go near them things. So over the years, especially since I got at this full time in 2006, and that was to try to help people who were being inundated with wind farms. And I was kind of disappointed. I'm still disappointed, even though now they're starting. I mean, that's 10 freaking years now. That's 10 years. And some of those wind people are finally starting to wake up, which is nice, but it's a long time. They got picked off by, doctors and government officials who were the experts, and they went out of their way to bastardize me, who was telling them the truth. And, so after a while, I kind of looked at these people and I thought, you people are so far gone, you can't see reality staring you right in front of your face, and you have no idea how to deal with it. I've told you how you can deal with it, but you can't go there because you're children, okay? You're still children of the state, and you still believe the state is your mama, and the state's going to look out for your best interests. Well, 10 years later, these people who have not stopped any wind farms, who have been inundated with this garbage, who have numerous people have had their lives destroyed and run off their land. Your hydro bills have gone through the ceiling, and now people are in the wind industry, not the wind industry, the wind fighters are actually now, after 10 years, not giving me a hard time. I was banned from every wind thing, even though, I run in the election, and even though we did a lot of video work and went to a lot of meetings, and the whole deal of the meetings was try to explain to the people what's actually going on, but their brains couldn't wrap around it. They'd never do this to us. Well, they did it to you, and they've continued to do it to you. And now we are basically got these stupid towers everywhere, and they continue to go up. Now the people are finally, seemingly starting to wake up, and are becoming more aggressive, and that's a good thing. I'll never forget that call I got from Rhode Island. And I used to get calls from all over the place: Missouri, Rhode Island, through the states, Utah, all kinds of places. And across Canada, that one call from Rhode Island, that said it all to me. The gentleman called me up and asked me what the hell they could do about this, and what I continue to tell people is if there's an election in your area, run in it, okay? Especially at the local level, because that's where it's all being implemented at. And more people now are starting to run. It's taken a long, long time. They're starting to understand that the enemy is inside the gates, and it's sitting at your local council table, implementing the global agenda at the local level. Okay? It's a Trojan friggin' horse. And you're going to stop it, you're going to have to stop it at the local level. So I'm pleased that I'm getting indication that more people are starting to run at the local level. the point of that is that it gives you a position of some, as phony as it is, some authority, and the people will tend to listen. The general public will tend to listen to you more if you're there than just standing on a street corner belly aching. So it's a very worthwhile cause if you care about your neighborhood, and you care about your local jurisdiction, and you care about your children. Then this is something that you have a duty to do. Okay, you can't bitch and complain and watch the same thing happen over and over and over and over again without stepping forward. Otherwise, you're just bitching and complaining. You might as well go stand on a street corner and look like a nutcase, because that's how much attention you're really going to get. So, when I'm a little bit more pleased with wind fighters, even though they've constructed most of the wind farms now. I think now is probably you're going to see people start to knock them down, which is what needs to be done. It's an enemy. It's in your neighborhood. It is hurting you. Knock it down, okay? And you have every right to do so because it was applied against you as a fraud, and fraud is against the law, okay? And this fraud has caused everybody harm. So the easy way to undo the harm is those who put the harm in there won't remove it, then you just remove it. Simple as that. And that's basically what I told the guy from Rhode Island when he called. What are they going to do about it? And I told him, I said, first thing you're going to do is you're going to gather up a bunch of people and you're going to run in the local election. Okay, the idea, and again, it's simple, very, very simple math. It's sales math, if you will, and that is, percentages. And what percentage of people I talk to do I need to close in order to make my job worthwhile? And that's the same thing in politics. So you got 5 people on the council, and so you need to run 15. Okay, if you run 15, chances are, well, not chances are, you're pretty much guaranteed of picking off the majority vote, and that's what these little councils run on, majority vote. Okay, they run their 5 trained monkeys. And you run 15 intelligent, knowledgeable people. You only need 3 in there to get the majority vote on the council of 5. So you run 15. That's 3-1. You run 15. I guarantee you, when this is over, you're going to have the majority vote. Now you can go and make some serious changes. You can actually put your feet down instead of belly aching. That's important to do. And I'll never stop saying that to people. Is the political thing legitimate? No, it's a complete fraud. Okay, it's a complete and total fraud. Politics is corporate. Okay, but the fact is, you're sitting at the board table now. Okay, and you have majority vote. Okay, big difference. So even though the entire political system is a fraud, the best way to deal with the fraud is to be somewhere that you got your finger on the button. And so I'll never stop saying that. But that's what I told the guy at Rhode Island. And he, and this is quite, I don't know when this was, 2010 maybe? And, he says, well, now that you mentioned about running for the local council, we just had a local election, and that's like 2 weeks later, they dropped this wind farm bomb in our lap. And so I said, well, okay, well, you're screwed there. So what you want to do is, they don't put these windmills up in the cities. They put them out in the rural areas because they want to run you off the land because China has their eyeballs on it. And they want to run you off. Okay, it's all part of the global agenda. And so they're getting rich while they're harming you and running off your land, and you still put up with this crap? Okay, this is an invading army. Okay, the United Nations and everything that they are attached to, be it the IMF, the World Bank, the World Health Organization, UNESCO, which controls your education, the FAO, which controls your food systems, and so on and so forth. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. That is who your politicians are doing the bidding of, not the people. Okay, so that is an attack upon the people. Okay, now people are used to an invading army as having guns and bombs and stuff. Well, this is far more serious than guns and bombs and that. Okay, guns and bombs, at least you can defend against it. This you don't even see. Most people don't even see this army coming at them. Right? And the army is installed at your local level and all the way up to the top, because every nation is a member state of the United Nations, and through treaties and agreements and letters of intent, they do the bidding of those who set up the United Nations, which are the same people that set up the wars. Okay, so it is an army, and it is an invading army, only they're using psychology here in the West to take you down, because it's very difficult to bomb the West. Okay, it just wouldn't fly. Okay, so we can set up false flags in that to shake the people's confidence, but you can't just come in and wholesale bomb the place. So they do it through paperwork and psychology and propaganda. But make no mistake, the enemy is inside the gates, big time. So what I tell a guy from Rhode Island is very simple. You get your people together. You get your rural people together. You explain to them what's going on. Okay, and if there's any men left out there in Rhode Island area, then you need to get your gear together, get your caterpillars and get your high hose and get your backhoes and start ripping up your roads. Those are your roads. You paid for them, you built them. Those roads belong to you, the people. They do not belong to the politicians. They do not belong to the state. They belong to the people. Those are the roads of the people. You have every right to do what you want with the road in order to protect yourself. Don't let the trucks in. Okay? If you know the trucks are going to bring that windmill gear down a particular road, then you hack the road. You stop them. And you stand together as one against the army that is invading you. Failure to do so, they get the spoils because you lost the war. You lost the battle. And people used to think that's pretty extreme. It's not extreme at all. Okay, if someone comes to your home and decides they want to come in and rape your wife and your children, are you going to stop them? Or are you going to worry about getting in trouble? Well, if you're a man, you're going to stand up. If you're what's been produced by the education system, you're going to probably phone someone to come and help you. And you'll find the help is either not showing up or it's insufficient. Okay? And then you will get to blame whoever didn't help you. I mean, the men have been so severely nutted, it is ridiculous. It is really sad. You are supposed to guard the house. And the men out there today have failed miserably at that job. Miserably. We wouldn't be in this position if the men were men. If the men were thinking men, they wouldn't be in this position. Most men today, well, I don't care about politics. Well, there's an old saying, either you're going to affect politics or politics is going to affect you. Well, we've been affected negatively, badly. Everything that you thought was yours was never yours, okay? Even though it was yours, I got to be careful how I say that. It always belonged to the people, okay? And I don't care, I don't like religion, okay? But I do believe in a creator, okay? And because I know I did not evolve from a ape, I'm pretty damn sure of that. So that only leaves me one other option, really, and that's a creator, okay? And what was written, and when you think about it, the founding fathers of the United States, it's all about God, the higher power. It's the same thing in the rule of law. The principles and supremacy of God come before the rule of law. So they kind of bait and switched us on that one as well. But the deal is that the Creator gave man dominion okay, over the animals, the fishes, the land, the resources, all of this stuff, go forward and populate the planet. Okay, so for the state to say they own the land is kind of a joke. They don't own the land, you own the land, okay? And you can go to the feds here that are chasing the people around, the ranchers and that, saying this is federal land. No, this is the land the Creator created. It belongs to the people. It does not belong to some fictitious outfit called the Fed, okay? It does not belong to some fictitious outfit called the BLM. It belongs to the people, period. Your Constitution says so. Now you're going to have to man up and assert that fact that the land belongs to the people. The resources belong to the people, not some fictional corporate nonsense called the government. Those are just your slave masters. If you wish to be a slave, then go and sit down and have some pizza and a beer and watch your stupid television. But there has to be still some men out there, and I keep saying I'm finding the women much stronger than the men, and that's really sad. Okay, the hens, and I please, if the ladies are listening, please understand how I'm saying this. This is not to be said in taken as a derogatory sense. This is just what I see. The rooster's job is to protect the house. Okay? And that's where the ladies live. And the ladies do what the ladies do, and they're not supposed to be worried about what else is going on. They don't need to worry about it because the rooster is supposed to be guarding that house in order to keep the foxes and the wolves and the weasel the hell out of the house. Because if they get in the house, they're going to destroy it. And the rooster has really let the ladies down because the weasels, the wolves, and the foxes have taken over the house. Then we see what's happened. Okay? All you got to do is look around. Okay? The people are destroyed. The society's destroyed. Your food system's been stolen. Your water system's been stolen. These are your resources. So we got to get the roosters back up to the house. And trust me, Donald Trump is no rooster. I think he's kind of a cross between a weasel and a fox. I don't think he's total weasel or total fox. He's a foxy weasel. But then so are all the rest. It's just a big show. They all know who they're running for and who they intend to represent. And they represent the corporation, not you. So regardless of what any of these stupid politicians tell you, they're lying. Simple as that. Okay? So let's make 2016 the year of the no vote. As long as you're voting for these clowns, you're legitimizing them. And you're telling them that you still aren't awake. You still don't get it. You still don't understand the role of the rooster. Right? In other words, you've been asleep. So we need to wake up. And again, people are waking up, and I really appreciate that. Now, back to this thing about the problem I had with the TD Bank up here, and when I realized that I didn't use the term gatekeeper back then. I was trying to figure out how this operated and how this entity called the ombudsman could consider themselves independent when they're getting a paycheck from the very company that I'm having a problem with. That's just a conflict of interest, right? You cannot be independent when you're picking up a paycheck from somebody. Okay, you work for them. You work for them, so you have a duty to them. And in that case, the duty was to, bait and switch and deflect. and allow the bank to basically wipe me out. But I didn't allow that, and ended up 3 months basically dealing with their lawyers. And they were quite vicious, and they lie a lot. That's the one thing I found out about lawyers, is they really have a hard time with truth in general. They're not possessed of that capacity. I didn't realize at the time. I just thought these guys, this particular group of lawyers I was working to, were crooked. And I've realized since some other stuff about them, but. We would cut a deal, and then I would get some paperwork, and it's not what we discussed at all. And this went on for 3 months, and they say, well, fine, you keep the cottage, and fine, you just keep the damn thing, but you owe us $40,000 that we're going to add on the mortgage, and that's our cost to you for trying to steal your property, which we didn't manage to steal. But we invested $40,000 in trying to steal it, and therefore you owe us $40,000, of which we'll put on the back end of the mortgage. And trust me, we're not going to renew the mortgage when it comes due. Well, I also have a rule of thumb that really I came to understand during that fight, and that these people are criminals. And they have no moral value whatsoever. And it wasn't until later that I found out that the lawyering business and the political business and everything else is actually not that they were immoral. That's what I thought. They were immoral. I'm standing as a reasonable moral man, and I'm not getting anywhere with these people. And I thought they were just immoral bunch of idiots. But I've since found out they're not even that, because to be immoral, you have to understand moral. But these people are worse than that. They're amoral, okay? They're amoral. They have no moral capacity, be it immoral, or immoral or moral. They are absolutely amoral. So they have no moral capacity whatsoever. That's why when they go in and drop bombs on villages and that, and kill a whole bunch of innocent people, they don't feel any. They don't feel anything, okay? Because they're amoral. Okay, it wasn't an immoral act that they did. It was an amoral act, and the amoral act is not attached to moral value. Therefore, they can go in and kill indiscriminately and feel no remorse, none whatsoever. Very, very dangerous people. This is the mark of a psychopath and a sociopath, and that is what the United Nations is based on. And these are the people that are inside your gates now. Okay, and it's very dangerous, and we have to change this out. We have to get them out of there. It's not like there's a bunch of amoral people running around. There's a very small group of them. They just happen to have control of the politics, the education, the food system, water system, yada, yada, yada. And we got to get rid of them, right? This idea of fracking, why are they fracking? They're fracking in order to drive you off the land, just like to put the windmills up to drive you off the land, okay? That's the plan. And what happens when we frack? We poison the water. Well, how can you live where you don't have water? You can't. Okay? Mission accomplished. We've run you off the land. Okay? Now we've vacated the land. Now we can do what we want with the land. Okay? Very, very vicious bunch of people. But it's not, insurmountable at all. So anyways, way back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I had this problem with the bank, and I decided I would get up on my moral high horse and ride it. And I also came to understand that somebody's going to have to blink here, because I'm not blinking. Okay? I am not blinking. So you can shove as hard as you want, Mr. Banker, but I ain't blinking. And then I got thinking about that. Like, this went on for 3 months. This was basically all I did every day for 3 months. And where they get people is people don't have that. They don't have that opportunity that I took. They don't have the 3 months to sit down and sift through this stuff and try to figure out how these people think in that, because they're busy trying to keep a roof over their head or whatever, keep food on the table. So these guys overrun them with paper and that, and finally they just give up, right? But I came to understand that somebody's always going to have to blink. And if you decided you're the one that's not going to blink, then that's going to force them to blink. So as miserable as they were, and as many deals as they cut, and then when I get the paperwork is opposite, and they like to do that, it's always opposite, world's upside down, that I'm not blinking. And eventually they had to blink. Then they did blink. But then they pulled, this is a war, right? It is a war. And you have to be a good warrior. A good warrior is not just some guy with muscles. You have to be able to think as well. Okay? You have to outflank, outmaneuver. And, I was basically running blind at the time because, I did a lot of reading of torts and Reasonable Man and all this kind of stuff during this 3 months, which in that case, I appreciate the bank trying to steal the cottage, because otherwise I would have never had any reason to look at any of this stuff. And so eventually they cut that deal. I would pay $40,000 for their expenses trying to steal, and they wouldn't renew the mortgage. Well, when we're done, they ate their $40,000, and they accepted the fact that that particular bank would renew the mortgage until I decided I didn't want to renew it there anymore. And that's the deal that ended up being cut. And so as hard as they tried, they didn't steal what they tried to steal. And through all of this, I saw other people that were being repossessed upon, who had been paying their mortgage like for 20 of the 25 years. They had a ton of equity in their homes. And that's what really started the bank back the bank down, was when I discovered this pattern of what they were up to. And that was they were chasing. They weren't going after anybody that was financed to the max. They were going after properties that had a lot of equity in them and trying to steal those. And so once I figured that out and saw that pattern, then they really got stymied and had to deal with that reality that I understood what the hell they were up to. So, but once they have blinked, the next stage always happens, and that is the attempt to renegotiate. Well, you don't renegotiate anything. You don't negotiate anything. You have won. You are the victor. Okay? The victor does not negotiate. The victor sets the terms. Okay? Of the beaten combatant. And so they will always come back and try to suck you back in. You don't go there. The blink's already happened. The game's over, and now you're calling the shots. Very important things to deal with. And I've said this, that we are in a psychological, spiritual war. Okay, so it's not about how many guns you got in your closet. It's about how many bullets you got in your mind. Because those are the shots that we got to be shooting. Okay? That's what we got to be shooting. This is a psychological, spiritual war, and we will win it that way, or we will lose it because we didn't know how to fight it. But we got to get the house back. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have got to get the house back. And the house includes all lands and all resources. And those resources belong to the people. Without those resources, without access to those resources, we're a lost people. So we have to make some decisions here very quickly. We very much have to make these decisions quickly. Anyway, so now I almost think I remember this guy from way back. I could be wrong on this particular guy, but I thought his name was Feinstein. Way back when, I don't know, early 2007, when me and my ex-co-host used to do shows on Blog Talk Radio, there was a guy, a lawyer, that got chucked in jail, and it was in California. And I thought his name was Feinstein. And what I've been saying for a long, long time now, maybe not often enough, but when I started calling places like the Prime Minister's office and the Premier's office and the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor General's offices, and seeing that they really don't want to talk at all, started to, get me to ask questions. And when I had that long, long chat with the Law Society of Upper Canada, which is basically just a franchise of the bar in London, which produces, not unlike Big Mac's, it's a franchise, and they produce a product, and that product they produce is called a lawyer. And that lawyer, most of the cabinets, I don't care what country you go in, if you look at the upper echelon of the legislatures and that, you will find that most of these people came out of a political science background, but most of them, the ones that really rise to the top as a general rule, tend to be lawyers. And so they're produced in order to control the politics. And they also are vested with writing the legalese into the policies, and the bills and that become statute, rules, and regulations. So you're really run by lawyers, not elected officials, but by lawyers. And the lawyers came out of the corporation, and their job is to advance the corporation and the wants and desires of the corporation. So, but when I had a long, long chat, it was a very interesting chat with that gentleman. And you can't just phone up like the law societies and fire. It's a lot of work, man, to get to somebody that will actually speak with you. I mean, these gatekeepers everywhere is out there. So you have to be very persistent. But I finally did end up having a very long chat. Nice guy. But didn't know anything because, again, he came up through the school system, the public school system, and he just believed what he was taught, and then he went to law school, and again, he just believed what he was taught. Most of the real history was never taught to him about lawyering or how to become a professional liar and how to hurt people and not care about it. You go from, most people are brought up with a moral character attached to them, but that's removed once you get into the law business. Okay, there's no room for morals. It's just paper. What does it say on this piece of paper? Well, won't that hurt somebody? We're not here. We don't judge that. We are just here. So they're a very amoral group, which makes your politicians amoral. So you have this moral population for the most part. Very few people would consider themselves to be amoral. But here you have this, the general population having thinking. And I'm sure there's lots of them see things on the TV that happen or things that happen themselves, and they said, these guys, this is immoral. Well, it may be immoral, but they don't have a moral guidepost. Okay, so they can't be moral or immoral. They are just what they are. They are amoral, and therefore they can throw an old lady out of her house, and it doesn't bother them. And that's sad. That's really freaking sad. They can go and shoot that guy they shot up in Oregon, Lavoie or whatever his name is, and shoot him 9 times with his hands up in the air, and then go have a beer afterwards with the boys. And they have no moral constitution whatsoever. We see it over and over and over and over again. A cop shoots a 12-year-old kid because the kid's got a BB gun or something in the park. How many people have we seen that are mentally handicapped, gunned down? This is an amoral group of people that is in control of your lives, and that has got to change. It has to change. Because if it doesn't change, it's just going to get worse. And who are you going to blame, right? You're going to blame them. They're not the ones that are to blame. We are the ones that are to blame because we allow it to continue. We allow it to just keep on rolling over top of us. So, no, it's us that are to blame because we haven't fulfilled our duty as men. Okay, we failed to protect the house. We forget to protect our lands. We got hoodwinked. Okay, but again, more and more people are waking up to that fact, and that's a good deal. Now we have to get to work, serious work. And we have to take these amoral people out of their positions of power. They have got to be removed because they will just continue to hurt and harm people. Now, if you want to go and jail them, fine. I mean, I did phone into Alex Jones many, many years ago. I almost feel bad for Alex, you know. What a twit. He knows his game, does it well, and you know, he's a great gatekeeper. He's a great deflector. He's a great disinfo agent. So, you know, I got to take my hat off. He does his job well. But he's not guarding a hen house. He's feeding the house to the ones that are to the foxes and the weasels and the wolves. So he does his job, although it's very illegitimate what he does. But I did call him in and call into his show when I first heard of this guy. I listened to a few shows, and he's babbling away. They've been on the air for 14 years or something at the time, and I listened to a few shows, and I said, well, okay, this guy's an absolute fearmonger. You can't be here for 14 years and not come up with some solutions yet. So I called in, I gave him the solutions, and he really showed his colors on that one. And that's, I think, about when I was done with Alex Jones real quick. So he's not telling you the truth. And a good disinformation. I mean, he does tell you some truth, but he weaves a story. It's a story. That's what it is. It's not based on reality. But then most people don't really have a grip on reality anymore. So a guy like Alex can ply his wares, and people get sucked in by it. But again, more and more people all the time are waking up to that sort of disinformation, which is rife throughout the so-called truther industry. And it is basically an industry of which I'm not part of. You know, there's lots of money to be made at this, but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the truth and only the truth, and I'm interested in to see people stop being harmed. I want to see the resources and the lands back in the control of those who own it, and that is the people. And that's what we will continue to push and try to somehow bring people up to that level of thought and lose the fear. And we can do it without a lot of people being killed. I'm not into this killing of people, but we do have to set things right. And they got us here through psychology and misuse of the spirit. And I am a firm believer we can take them down the same way because there's more of us. We overpower them. They cannot stand up. Once we stand up, they got no choice but to stand down, and they will run and hide. Okay? And that's a fact. They're like the schoolyard bully. You know, you stand up to the schoolyard bully, all of a sudden, he ain't so tough no more, right? Now, you may take your licks, but the schoolyard bully's going to avoid you like the plague, okay? Because he knows that you're willing to take a beating to stand up. And most of these bullies are not strong to start with. What are they running with? They're running on a psychology, okay? They use psychology. Bullies are wonderful at psychology, right? And they fear you, okay? They don't fear you. They put the fear in you, okay? But they do that through psychology. Okay? And so it is a psychological war. And we use the psychology back and turn it on them. That, the psychology of we need to fear you holds no water. It is us that you need to fear. But once we turn that table over, it's over. That's simple. Now, it's going to be messy for a while, make no mistake about it. It's going to be messy for a while because you're going to have all these different factions and that running around. So it's not going to be fixed overnight, not properly. Okay, it's going to have to be a long shakeout here, and that we make sure that those who are administering on behalf of the people are actually administering on the behalf of the people. And if they're not, well, they're out of here quick. We don't wait for the next election or whatever it is, however you're going to set this up. It is just simply a fact. You're out of here. You got the old hook like they used to use in vaudeville. If your act ain't going well, you're out of here. So that's how I feel about that. But anyways, I saw this. I when I talked to when I went through this with the Law Society guy, he was having a difficult time with what I was saying, and I get that, and I appreciate that, and I understand that because I understand that he came through a certain system, and his brain is in that particular thought process. But by the time we were done, and we talk about lawyers and talk about judges and how all of this operates and that, he did at one point ask me how it is I think the way I think. And I said, well, I just ask questions. And then the question leads me to go find an answer, which typically brings up another question, which takes me to go find the answer, which brings up another question, and so on and so forth until you get to the root of the problem. And then that's what gets done. Now, most people do not have the time to do this, and I appreciate that. Back in 2006, when I talked to my Valentine, I guess, today, that I already knew about this fraud in 74 on this renewable energy. I already had a very good handle on the fraud that it was being set up, and I'd done some research on it. So I was fairly well vested in the fraud before it ever got unleashed. So I went down and visited some people that were being run off their property. They couldn't live in their homes anymore. They couldn't keep their farm animals anymore. Cattle bleeding out their noses, animals miscarrying like a bugger, and businesses destroyed, family farms destroyed, lives destroyed. And when I came home, I just told her, I says, I get all this stuff, and I have a choice. I either turn a blind eye to it, or I try to do something about it. But I told her, I said, this is going to be a full-time job. This is not a part-time job. There's an awful pile of information that's got to be dealt with, and I have a lot of learning to do yet. And so it's your call, because this is going to get brutal. This is going to be financially devastating, because this is when I do something, I'm all in. And if I get into this is a full-time job. I have a lot of reading to do, and so you call it. Say no, and I turn a blind eye. Say yes, and then I'm all in. And she said, do it. So that's all I've been doing for the last 10 years. And, she's working, but she's not working in a high-paid job. So it's been extraordinarily difficult. We've been extremely broke, and we have been actually out of food. But it always seems to, work itself out. So it's been good and it's been bad, but the point is that, and I'm not kidding when I say that I have read tens of thousands of pages of documents. I lost count a long time ago. And a lot of these documents, I wouldn't wish on anybody to weed their way through them. They're written in babble gab, basically, and to discourage people from reading them. Once you've read enough of them, you figure out how they're writing this stuff, so you can buzz through it pretty quick. But it's been a long haul. But I wouldn't have changed this for anything. Not a chance. So now when I talk to these people and these gatekeepers and these people in the Politico and that, most of them know who I am now, and the conversation's getting much better. But the guy from the Law Society, he was flabbergasted, because as we worked our way through this thing, he said, "You know what this means?" I said, "I know what it means." And he's going, "Holy crap." And I said, "Yeah, but it is what it is." And that every single dollar that was ever taken from someone in a POA court, which is basically traffic court and small court, every single dollar that's ever been taken from one of those people, every single one of those people who's ever incarcerated because of these justices on these benches in those particular courts, have to be compensated. Every dollar ever taken has to be returned. And that's just the way it is, because that's what the law says. And then I had a long chat with a gentleman from the Attorney General's office, a lawyer, and we went through legal and law, and that was all agreed, that legal is not law, and that legal actually is designed to harm people, whereas law says do no harm. So legal is the opposite of law, okay? But then legal is the political, corporate, and commercial end of this, okay? It's the corporate law, okay? It is not law. It is the rules and the regulations, basically the bylaws of the corporation. All of these statutes, rules, and regulations, that's what they are. They're bylaws of the corporation. It's not got anything whatsoever to do with law. Never did. So, I've been saying now for a while that legal isn't law and law isn't legal. I mean, if you look up legal, it says similar to, like, but not law. And if you look up the rule of law, it tells you that the rule of law is an ambiguous statement. And it can mean, a myriad of different things. So they can't even nail down a definition of what the rule of law is. So that should give people pause. So, when I started looking through this stuff, and I've been dragged in and out of court, and some of my friends have been dragged in and out of court, and we've been falsely arrested, and we've been intimidated like a bugger. And but I never ever got angry about it. I got a little frustrated about it, but I always looked at it as a classroom. We did that 3-day trial. I thought, this is a classroom. I can learn something from this, and we learned quite a bit. So it's all for a reason, as far as I'm concerned. All of these weird people would look at extremely negative things that have happened here. I look at them as extremely positive things, because it led me maybe to ask new questions and to find answers to those questions, or to look at things a little differently, to search a little differently. And what I finally came to the conclusion is that because the judges and the Crown attorneys and the police are all classed as employees of the Crown, or in the case of the Americans, the state. Then it'll be state or federal state, but it's all the state. that these people, they always push this idea that you will get a justice and a fair trial because the judiciary is independent. Well, when I go and I study this, it just reminded me of the ombudsman from the TD Bank way long ago that said they were independent somehow. And I said, you can't be independent. You're taking your paycheck from these people. Therefore, you are bound by them and to them, and you cannot be beholden to two masters. So you obviously are beholden to that who pays you. Okay? And that makes what you do fraudulent. Okay? Because you're deceiving people, and deception is fraud. You're deceiving people to believe that you're independent when, in fact, it's impossible for you to be so. Because if you were working for the complainants, trying to help them out and beat the bank back off, guess what? You wouldn't be working there long. It goes to the newspaper business, where the old guy said, we're prostitutes of the rich men, because if we did dare print our own opinions, we would find ourselves on the street in the morning without a job, and we would be unemployable in this business anywhere. And this is the same attitude. So when I sit down and I go through all of this stuff, and the judges and the police and the crowns and all that kind of stuff, and the politicians all take an oath to the crown, to the queen, to serve and protect the crown or the queen or the corporation, because the queen is at the apex of the political and legal systems, which is completely corporate. So your so-called elected officials and your judiciary take an oath to serve and protect the slave owner. Now, how can you go to a court and see justice served if the judge sitting on the bench and the crown attorneys and the police who bring you to court are all catching a paycheck from the state or the crown? How is it that these people can claim independence? They can't. Okay? And that means that every single court case that has come through here, based on statutes and that, I'm not talking about murder, that's law. Okay? It's against the law to kill somebody. That's law. Legal. All of these rules, regulations, and bull crap, all your financing, all that kind of stuff, is all fraudulent. And because they cannot sit there on the bench and tell you that you were given a fair trial, because they're all beholden to who gives them their paycheck. Okay, and that is the state or the crown or the queen, whatever you want to call it. So it's impossible. They're in conflict of interest. Okay, and therefore they can't rule. They can't do it. And that's when I didn't really realize, sometimes I get talking, and like when I was talking to the guy from the Law Society, and he's going, holy crap, you know what that means? I said, yeah, every nickel and dime and dollar that's ever been taken in these courts has to be returned to the people. Because the justice is sitting in the POA courts, which is traffic courts and the family courts and that, are not judges. Because you can't be a judge unless you're a lawyer, and it says right on their site is it is illegal to practice law without a license. Well, none of these justices have a license. None of them are lawyers, not a damn one of them. I thought at the time that most of them were lawyers, that some of them may not have been, but he informed me that none of them have a license. Well, if it's illegal to practice law without a license, which is an idiot statement, because it should say it's unlawful to practice law without a license, but they intertwine these two words so that to confuse people, so that people think that legal and law mean the same damn thing. They do not. So that statement right out of the Law Society is a fraudulent statement because it is a deceptive statement. The statement should have said it is unlawful to practice law without a license, but it said it's illegal to practice law without a license. Okay? So we have corporate on one side of it, the legal and law on the other side of it, and the two of those things cannot be mixed together. They're oil and water. But when I found out that none of these justices have a license, and yet it says here it's illegal to practice law without a license. Well, if your law society, who controls all the legal system, says that you have to have a license, which means you have to be a lawyer, then one of two things is going on. Either there is not law being practiced in these courts, because it says they can't practice law without a license. You're just telling me they don't have a license. They're not lawyers. So if they're not practicing law, what is it they're practicing other than witchcraft? And how did they end up on the bench if they can't get there without a license? And then he told me that they were appointed by the Chief Justice. Well, wait a minute. Doesn't the Chief Justice know the rules? How can the Chief Justice ought to know the rules? You can't practice law without a license. How is it that these guys are sitting on the bench, and how is it that the justice, Chief Justice, appointed these people that would be knowingly breaking the law, or in fact they're not practicing law at all? They're not practicing anything. Okay, they're just an administrative body there to collect money from people on behalf of the corporation, of which they're in conflict of interest, because they get their paychecks from the corporation and or government. So none of it flies. So you're going to have to turn around and return every nickel and dime and say you're sorry at least to these people that you've stolen from. So it's all conflict of interest. Now I have a friend who was a paralegal for 18 years before the Law Society got their hooks into that, and they had actually a Trojan horse within the basically semi, but not regulated by the Law Society. It was separate from it. So the paralegals had a fair bit of leeway. They weren't tied down to this crap, but then some turncoat worked it out so that over so many years that you couldn't be a paralegal unless you were, the Law Society took over the licensing and everything of the paralegals. But he's still in that mindset, and we have a lot of fun sometimes because he spent 18 years basically doing legal documents in that. So his brain is in this legal system. And, when I'm saying, well, the whole thing's a conflict of interest. It doesn't fly, right? And he's starting to get that now, but he had a lot of trouble with it. Just like a lawyer, I suppose, would have a lot of trouble with it because they weren't told any of this stuff, and that's the problem. So we have to teach. I keep saying, keep talking, teaching, and shining the light. Okay, that's what has to be done. You have to do it with your local municipal people. You have to do it with your school board. You have to do it with your preachers. You just got to do it. Okay. In the best way you feel you're capable of doing it. But you got to keep planting that seed. Okay? If you don't plant a seed, nothing's going to grow. It's that simple. Okay? So, you're the gardeners of the land, I guess, okay, to plant the proper seed so that it reaps the benefit for the people, okay, in order to feed the people mentally and spiritually. Versus what they've been fed, which is corrupt food. And it has messed up their thought processes. So we have to cleanse those thought processes and get back to some reality here. Anyways, this guy, I'm sure his name was Feinstein. And I don't know. I'm going to have to look in and see if this is the same guy. But it sounds like this may be the same guy. I ran into a video last night after I did the show, which just really made me smile. Now, this guy doesn't say is conflict of interest. He says because a judge can't take a bribe. Okay, so he's going about this a little bit differently, but it's the same. It's the same scenario, and what he's describing as the bribe is the paycheck. Okay, he's being bribed by the state because the state pays him. Okay, and therefore he is bound to the state, and he already took an oath to serve and protect the state, and the state's paying the judge, and therefore the judge is, in my opinion, in conflict of interest, as is everybody else in that system in conflict of interest, because you can't get a fair trial when these people are getting paychecks from those who are trying to hurt you. But he calls it a bribe, which I think is kind of a cool way of looking at this. If you want a paycheck, you will do as we want you to do, which is basically a bribe. So that's what he uses. But his story, where is that thing? Where did I see that? I had it here last night. Where is it? I saw it this morning. I get so many tabs open here when I'm doing this stuff. And, I learned another thing yesterday, which just shows me that you can't quit, because you're always going to learn something new. And I find that extremely interesting. Now, I normally refer to myself as a researcher. I'm not a truther, because when you've changed the word now, so you're going to have a different meaning on this truther thing. I was always skeptical of that group. But I found out yesterday that I'm actually not a researcher. And it was a word I was looking for, and I don't know where they found this in an old Webster's or etymology or whatever, but, anytime you put something before or behind a word, you've changed the word, okay? You've changed the meaning of the core word, and that's a fact. But I found out that the re is basically to do again or go back. And so a researcher is one that researches. Okay? Search again is basically what it means. So I'm not really a researcher, and the researchers aren't really researchers. They are actually searchers. And simple things like that, you go, wow. I've been calling myself a researcher. I've heard the word ever since I was little. Oh, they research this and this and that. So they're researchers. When in fact, that's not true at all. Okay, the research is to go back and search something again. So that's not what I am. I am a searcher. And that's kind of cool, I guess. But this stuff just keeps coming, right? Now, where did I put that thing? I just saw it again. It's in here somewhere. Now, if somebody wants to talk about something we're talking about on these subjects we're talking about today, then pick up the telephone, call 718-717-8296. Just give me, if you're going to call in, just give me 5 minutes. I want to just, where the hell? Oh, here it is. I want, this guy's name is Richard Fine, former U.S. prosecutor. And he seems quite happy. And this is from fulldisclosure.net, I guess, put this out. I don't know who these guys are. I'll have to look into them. Like I said, I ran into this particular video after the show last night and listened to it. And again, as normal. Although I did better last night. The night before I got, Friday night I got to bed at 3:30 in the morning. And last night I got to bed at 2:30 in the morning. So my sweetheart My little Valentine allowed me to sleep into almost 10 this morning, which was 9:30, which is much appreciated. So I actually got a little bit of sleep last night. But I watched this last night. It's 15 minutes. And I have to look into it a bit more. Usually I don't pop this stuff till I've totally researched it. Oh, see, I said it again. Totally searched it. But I want anybody listening in the chat or anywhere else can get a hold of me. Anytime I see research from now on, please hold me on that and spot it out to me so that I will stop doing it. I'm a searcher. Anyways, the story here is former U.S. prosecutor Dr. Richard Fine explains how citizens can disqualify a judge who is on the take. I like this. This is even better. It sounds so much better than conflict of interest, doesn't it? And it is the exact same thing. All former U.S. all 435 California Superior Court judges in L.A. County can be disqualified by citizens who have been involved in litigation against the county of L.A. In the last 2 decades. If you lost, you can null and void the judge's order. And it goes on to say, you can null and void the judge's order and have a new trial. If you paid money to the county, you now have a chance to recover that money, according to Fine, who describes how he has already disqualified 5 judges who have been on the take. To get copies of Richard Fine's documents, go to fulldisclosure.net, 2011/03, and a copy of the Capron versus Massey Cole case where the Federalist Papers are quoting John Adams can be found at this link. Now, I haven't had a chance to look into that yet. I will, and I encourage other people to do it. But, and I got to find out if this is the same guy, because I thought his name was Feinstein way back when we were at Blog Talk Radio. And I knew somebody, a lawyer got chucked into jail. The guy's been since disbarred. And people were concerned about it because if it's the same guy, he was trying to help people who really didn't have any money in that, and he was really pushing some buttons, and they threw him in jail for it. So hopefully this is the same guy. It would make an interesting story for me. But I don't exactly know what that case was about or anything, but I do know that all of the judges and the prosecutors and the police are all in conflict of interest. They are not looking to give you a fair trial. They've conspired to make sure you don't get one, okay? Because they are there to protect the state. And their duty is to the state, not the people. Well, if you've got a duty to the state, you can't have a duty to the people, okay? You can't be beholden to 2 masters. So this idea that the ombudsman is independent while being paid by the bank, or that the courts are independent while being paid by the state, is ludicrous. There is no independence there. There is no opportunity for a fair trial there whatsoever. There's no opportunity for a trial. You know, in law, again, and we're not in law here, we're in the legal system, the corporate system, but in law, when you don't go before a judge and you don't have a crown attorney ripping you apart, what you have is you have a plaintiff and a defendant and a judge whose job is to ask questions, to clarify things, not to judge. The judge is not there to judge. And the judgment is made by a group of your peers. That's law. Okay? It's so damn simple, it hurts. But, they started taking away your right to law by using excuses like, well, for these smaller cases and that, which really aren't that important, they're taking up too much time and it's costing too much money and yada, yada, yada. So we'll put these, administrative judges and that in place, and they will still get people will still get a fair trial, and it'll speed things up, won't clog the courts, and everybody gets a free trial, and life is good. What a load of crap! And they passed all of this stuff, which took away your right to a fair trial. The only fair trial you can possibly have is from a jury of your peers. And if you don't have an injured party in law, then there was no crime. Without that injured party, there is no crime. And the injured party must be standing as the complainant with the accused, because it is a complainant that is saying that the defendant did something wrong and harmed the complainant. Well, if no complainant is standing there, then there was no harm done and there was no crime. So I think, I was thinking about this last night, and the idea that, when I talked to the lawyer for Attorney General's office and the lawyer at the Law Society, both of them seemed rather shaken with the conversation. And hopefully they went, what the hell's going on? And hopefully, there was enough discussed there that it forced them to go ask questions. And I think this is what happened to this Richard Fine as he started asking questions. I have another document here of a lawyer who retired and is sickened by his industry. Now he didn't say that while he was a lawyer. He said it after he was a lawyer, but at least he still said it. And the problem was that there's no moral fiber in this so-called law system that we have. That was his biggest complaint. That it's void of moral, right? And law is built on moral, okay? And legal, the commercial side, is built on amoral. And 99% of what goes on in the courts is on the corporate side, and it is of amoral. It has no moral value, and therefore it cannot possibly be law, because people are being hurt through this amoral system. So anyways, I found his video kind of interesting. And again, don't hold me to it. I'm going to put it in the chat, but don't hold me to it because I haven't had a chance to fully go through what all took place in his particular case. But it does basically come to the same conclusion, and that is that you cannot have a fair trial in the court system that we have today, period. Maybe something like murder, where you have a jury trial, but there's always, the system is so corrupt now that, if I'm accused of killing someone, I will probably be found guilty. If I'm a policeman that is, or a very rich man, a very big corporate man, chances are I will be found not guilty, even though the evidence may be overwhelming in both cases. So, it is a very, very, very corrupt system that we are under, and we have to fix it, and that's the beauty of it. Now, I do know the police around here, and I see now that there's more police being charged. It seems to me that the upper echelon is getting nervous, and that they want to show that justice can still be done. And I'm seeing now that they seem to be throwing their lower end people, i.e. the police, under the bus more regularly now, to keep the eyes down at the ground level. And people say, yeah, see, the judges are finally going after these cops. Well, not really. What they're doing is they're misdirecting again, okay? And it goes back to what Kitchener and other people said, the Army guys are just, just cannon fodder, right? They're just stupid people. Why would you go out and have somebody chucking bombs and bullets at you? You would want to know that what's going on is legitimate before you jumped onto that wagon, and that's the problem. Most people don't know. They don't check it out. They don't understand where they're going, why they're going. They're recruited. They're lied to, and they don't matter, right? And just like the police don't matter. The judges is the upper echelon, really, in that system, and the policemen. What are the policemen? The policemen are policy enforcers. The policemen came, they were the horse groomers in merry old England. That's what they were. They groomed horses. They were the stable boys. That's where the police came from. They came out of the stables. And the businessmen and the lawyers and so on and so forth were getting some of their shipments raided, I guess, and they wanted to protect them, so they gave these stable boys extra work. And that was to go down to the docks and protect the shipments from theft and whatnot. Okay? So the police were born out of the stables and brought to the docks for commercial reasons. And that is your law nowadays. It is all commercial. All right? And you are a way for them to get money. Okay? So they hired the stable boys to protect the merchants, the top merchants, to protect their merchandise and that. And now they've kind of rebranded it, so not only do they protect the merchants, which is the state, they also have a new role, which is robbing you. They were hired to protect the goods of the merchants, and also their other job is to rob you. Brilliant. So on the one side, they protect the state, which is the merchants, and on the other side, they rob the commoners to put the money in the merchants' pockets. How freaking pathetic. And you think you can get a fair trial? No, you cannot. So this is good stuff. It really is. It's good stuff. So I'm going to throw Richard Fine's thing in here, and I would like, if maybe somebody has seen this before, when was this put up? Okay, this went up way March 22 to 11. 2011. So I have no idea what's taken place since then. I haven't really had the chance to look into this particular guy or what's surrounding it, but you can take these judges down. Now I have another friend who's going at it from the spiritual side, I guess, which is Minister Robin out of Alberta. And he hasn't had a driver's license for a long, long time. He has a small minivan. Not a minivan, but what do you call it? A house on wheels, whatever. He motorhome. And he's got it plastered all over the motorhome, right? That, whatever it is he walks with. He's a guy in law. And the law came from the Creator. And he's been towed a few times, but every time he's been towed, he hasn't had to pay a towing charge, and they release it. But he is adamant, and he's correct in his assessment that way. And he's had quite a few judges dismissed from cases as well. So it's not that it can't be done, okay? Just more of us need to do it, okay? And that goes back to Mandel House saying that, even if 1 in a million figure this out, we have plausible deniability. And that's what they tried to do here, and I guess in the States and different countries, with this free man thing, trying to tag people as free men, that they are some kind of conspiracy group trying to take down your legitimate government and yada, yada, yada. And they've tried to use that in courts. In fact, when we were in court, what was it? I forget the name of it anyways, was sitting on the desk beside the prosecutor. And so they had already labeled us as this not to listen to anything we had to say because we were using quasi legal theories and whatnot, and that we shouldn't be listened to what we had to say. And that was the plausible deniability that they're trying to use, which doesn't work anymore anyways. But they took a shot at it, and that has been beat down. So basically, the gates are open now, and all we got to do is kick these guys out to the other side of the gate and close the gates on them again, and then we can go back and get our lands back and get back to some sort of a reality. And you will find that the crime rate disappears. You will find the illicit drug use disappears. You will find the education system change because then we will be in control of it. If the people don't have control, then they're slaves, okay? And the propaganda will disappear. No longer will people be, freaking out that climate change is going to destroy the planet. I mean, we did that last night on this show. I mean, here's these idiot scientists saying that these big birds were up in the Arctic with these turtles and hippo-like creatures, and that it was a hot, steamy, swampy area. This is the high Arctic, no ice. And then the next story that I ran into on the same Communist Broadcasting Corporation site said that at the same time period, the Antarctic was a sweaty, almost jungle-like place. So if there was no ice on the two poles, then one could safely accept that there was no ice anywhere, and therefore, can the planet survive without these polar caps? Well, according to science themselves, yes, it can. And so this whole idea that if we don't carbon tax the snot out of you and restrict your use of electricity and yada, 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 that you are going to destroy the entire planet, obviously is a load of nonsense, because there it was on a good old CBC that both poles had no ice on them. And Big Bird was living up there or something. So this idea is ludicrous. So once we get the lands back, and once we run these amoral idiots off our lands, now maybe they can be helped. Maybe with the proper, proper help, maybe we can find some moral fiber in them. But if not, they must be kept away from the men and women, the people, because they've proven that they are a detriment to the well-being of the people in general, and therefore they must be kept from the people. So whatever we do with them, I don't know. I'm not big on killing people, but we do have a duty to keep them away from the people, to keep them away from the children, to keep them away from the students, so that they cannot manipulate them into believing the most ridiculous to be true, when in fact it is just ridiculous and not true. So that's what we can do, and that is what we need to do, and it should be fun, and it gives us something fun to do. It'll be much more stimulating than sitting and watching a TV or a ball game. I still to this day do not know how anybody could possibly pay money to go and sit and watch a baseball game. I don't know if there's anything slower on the planet, maybe paint drying. You know, that I never did get that. I mean, I used to like playing it. Don't get me wrong, but to watch it, wow. Get your shit together, people. Go play pickup or something. That's fun. You're involved in it. And this is the problem. Too many people are not involved in anything. They become pedestrians. They become watchers. They become the audience. But they're not participating. Okay? They don't participate. They're not, they're just the audience. They sit there and they stare at things. They stare at things. Want to go to the ball game or the hockey game? Yeah. And we'll just sit there and stare and eat a hot dog or something. I'm not saying that it can't be entertaining, but what I'm saying it is not. It is taking your time, which could be better used. I mean, the celebrities and these sports figures that get paid these ridiculous sums of money, it's for a reason. Okay, it's for a reason. It's to deflect your thought processes from where they should be to somewhere else. It's to deflect your conversations from where they should be to somewhere else. Did you know they signed a deal, for $50 million? Wow, that's amazing, but I don't know if he's going to make it or not or whatever. I mean, these are conversations that are nonsensical. You don't know these people. You don't know who they are. They're just put out there in front of you to go, to, okay? And be so impressed by how much money they make or what kind of car they drive or how big a house they got. While you're busting your ass trying to keep a roof over your head. Use your time better, okay? Use it better. We have a big project in front of us. And, I don't like the word community. Neighborhood I can deal with. So we have a huge neighborhood project to deal with here. And it has to start at our local level. But if you add up all the local levels, then you have the entirety of the lands of which we possess. Okay? And then we get the lands back. There will be no more of this water shortage garbage. There will be no more of this fracking nonsense. There will be no more of this stupid windmill nonsense. We can clear the slate and start again. We got to start with a clean slate. Okay? We can't really repair what's been destroyed. And we have to start with a clean slate. And the fact is that the lands belong to the people. All the resources belong to the people. The animals belong to the people, as do the fishes and the plants and the ores and all of that kind of stuff. It all belongs to the people to use for their benefit, the people's benefit. Now, if you look at all of the wealth that has been extracted from your lands, of which you got really no benefit from, then you should be somewhat ticked off. Because that is generally would be referred to as theft. Someone came onto your land and stole your resources and got very wealthy on it, and then left a mess behind or whatever, and you, the people, watched some entity come onto your lands and steal from you. That makes no sense. Well, the government will do whatever it wants. There's not much we can do about it. Jimmy got thrown in jail and his lawyer got thrown in jail and disbarred. If you go up against them, they'll thump you into the ground. And look at those guys up in Oregon. They shot that guy. Look at Waco, what they did. Look at Ruby Ridge, what they did. Whatever. That is what they did in all of those cases, absolutely amoral. Not immoral, amoral. So you know what you're dealing with. Okay? They told you what they're dealing with. you're dealing with a bunch of amoral, psychologically bent people. And it is to no one's advantage except theirs for them to continue in the roles that they're in. It is nothing but a detriment to the people in general that they remain there. So there's only one solution, you know. And I will even go as far as to call it the final solution, because they see they're going for their final solution as well, okay, which is the complete and total control of everyone and everything on the planet, okay? And that is genocide. So, you know, we going to put up with that? I don't think so. So we're just going to have to do something with them, and get what was supposed to be gotten, what was given in the beginning. Okay. The Creator gave you and I dominion. Period. Okay, so the Pope says he's the vicar of Christ. Horse's ass. Show me the contract. The Queen says that the Queens and the Kings say they're the proxy for Christ. Show me the contract. If you ain't got a contract with the Creator saying that he put you in charge, then you ain't in charge. You're a deceiver and a liar. Okay, and if you looked at the popes and that, you will know that they're amoral. And the same thing with all corporate is amoral. And the first corporation came out of Rome. And we are still to this day under the Pope, under Roman law, so on and so forth. They've rebranded it a few times, but for all intents and purposes, we are still under the Roman law. How is it that so many wars have happened and so much pain has happened on this planet when it was us that were given dominion over it, and then someone else took dominion of it? Now, we allowed that to happen, and we have suffered the consequences ever since. Now, we've made excuses ever since as well. Okay, we've always made excuses as to, well, you know, they had to bomb them people, and, you know, they really didn't have a choice, and, you know, as bad as it was, well, we'll just have to get over it, and all this kind of excuses for basically ever. Making excuses for your illegitimate slave owner. Nowhere did we become slaves of the Pope. And I have never seen a contract from any of these people saying that they have the divine right of kings, which was really the only legitimate thing that was ever tried. And in the divine right of kings, the kings or the queens had the right to rule so long as they didn't break the law, as per the King James Bible. As soon as they break that law, they have moved from law into tyranny. And the corporate system is tyranny because it breaks the law. Because it's very specific, and that's what Robin runs on. And he's had quite a few crown attorneys and judges bail. Because it says there, and this is the Bible that all of these people took an oath to uphold. It's very specific in law. Do not add or take away from my word, which is law. And they've done that. So they have no legitimate right to rule. Okay? They're tyrants. They're elites. They are a group of people who believe that they are above you and that you must bow to what they want. Well, that puts them in the position of God. and that's illegitimate. So they have to go. Bye-bye. Hit the road. And people have to be going to court. Now, I've had judges, justices run out of the courtroom from me, and I didn't particularly want them to run anywhere. I didn't go into court with the express idea that if I say this or say that, it's going to force these people into a corner and they're going to run away. I never really played that game. There's a lot of that game going on, you know. If the judge leaves and he comes back and then you got to reassert your position. What is that shit? I ain't playing that dumbass game. That's like children. No, I went in there with what I thought were my own legitimate concerns and questions, and I didn't go in there to try to make anybody run away. I wanted to deal with the situation. But whatever, I mean, apparently I said things there that rattled their cage, and I didn't mean to rattle their cage. I was asking legitimate questions. But what I found out over the years is when I ask legitimate questions, I either don't get an answer or somebody runs away. Well, how can you be a legitimate government or a legitimate courthouse if you can't even stand your ground and answer a simple damn question? Obviously, you're not legitimate. And if you're not legitimate, you can't be sitting there. And if you're not legitimate and can't be sitting there, then nobody can get a fair trial. And therefore, like Fine says, everything that they've ever come down with is void. And is voided because of the conflict of interest. He calls it bribery, which I suppose it is. But to me, it's just conflict. It's just simply conflict. You cannot judge independently when you're in conflict. You can't do it. So that means everything that's ever come through, as far as the corporate side of it goes, is illegitimate. And every judgment is void. They cannot have judged it. That's what I told the guy from the Law Society. He went, holy crap. That's what he said, holy crap. Do you know what this means? This is the Law Society of Upper friggin' Canada, for crying out loud. Yeah, I know what it means. You know what it means, my friend. Okay? Every nickel, every dime, every dollar ever taken from anybody in these particular courts must be returned to them. Anyone that was ever incarcerated from this court must be compensated for their time stolen. Because you kidnapped these people. You stole their lives for a period of time. Okay? Has to be rectified because you've caused harm, and it's against the law to cause harm. And this entire system is set up for no other purpose than to cause harm because you've never brought a victim forward. And that's what has to happen because we can't get our freedom otherwise. Okay? You will never get the freedom of and for the people until this happens. And the only way it's going to happen is that we stand our ground and explain it to them. You know, I saw another guy who I've looked at a little bit, and, you know, maybe I should sharpen up my game a little bit, but he's doing a very nice job as far as I'm concerned. And my name's Ron Stevens, and his name is Mark Stevens. Of course, he spells his name wrong. He spells it with a V, and I spell mine with a PH, and I'm certain that he's spelling his wrong. But you know, I've watched a few of his videos. He does a show, I forget what it's called. You can look it up, but I think it would be well worth listening to. And he is running on the same line as I'm running on, and I'm very pleased to see that. And it's basically the same thing. This is completely it's illegitimate. The whole damn system is illegitimate. And they hurt people, and they can't do it. Okay? These policies that the stable boys chase around on they are nothing but They're things that are given the color and force of law. They say that, the color. Color of law is not law. Okay? And they need force in order to force you to submit to their color of law, corporate bylaws, statutes, regulations, and so on and so forth. Without it, everybody would just tell them to take a hike, and we do need to tell them to take a hike. But we also have to be responsible, right? You must understand that if you cause someone harm, well, then you must restore it back to before the harm was done. That's a given. And I don't think many people would have a problem with that. I don't think many people have a problem with that at all. And that's why I like the Native community so much. They had law figured out, because their law comes from their Great Spirit, which is the Creator, and their system of government was set up properly. Their system of law was set up properly, and that was set up basically how law is supposed to be, and that is a group of your peers. The one that caused the harm and the one that is harmed come together and they have a chat to try to figure out if they can come to terms for restitution. In the system we have, the corporate system, the victim never has anything restored to them. It's not about the victim. The victim is there as a facilitator for the corporate courts to extract from the defendant. So the victim is basically more or less like a patsy for the commercial legal system to extract funds from people. But in real law, and I've read some articles and some papers on the idea that the original Constitution of the United States, or of America rather, came basically was fashioned after, I don't know, was the Iroquois or who, on their system of government. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it parallels pretty good because both of them are about the law of the Creator and how to deal with this. And so basically if you sit down in front of a group of your peers who witnessed this, and you threw your tomahawk through my teepee, or you threw a rock through my window, whatever the case may be, and people saw you do it, so there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that you didn't do it, and the question becomes really, will you be a man? And will you be in law, and will you restore my teepee or my window back to the condition it was in before you busted it? And that gives the accused plenty of opportunity to apologize, in which in most cases you would find an apology there. I was having a really bad day, my dog ran away or whatever. I was just irritated. And I lost it, and I threw my thing through your teepee or my rock through your window, and I'm sorry about that. And I was just having a really bad day, and I would be more than pleased to fix your teepee or your window. That's law. That's as simple as it gets. So if the defendant decides, well, screw you, all right? I don't have to fix your teepee, and I don't have to fix your window, and I don't have any intention of fixing it. It was a bad mood. Tough luck. That's the way it is. Bite me. And that's where the jury comes in, okay? And the jury listens to these people and makes a decision, okay? If a decision cannot be come to an agreement, and this is the reasonable man again, two reasonable men sit down, and they're women, or a man and a woman, sit down, and the idea of this is, in law, is to come to a solution that is acceptable to both parties. Okay, that's the whole point of law. But we don't have law anymore. We've got thieves and banditos running the system. So if you can sit down and come to a conclusion and come to an agreement, that is what reasonable men do. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll fix your TP, I'll fix your window, I apologize, whatever. We'll get it looked after immediately. Fine. Shake hands. No problem. Take care. And out of that, everybody learns something, right? They become more morally connected, not less morally connected. It's very hard to become morally collected when you're getting beat up by an amoral system who doesn't understand, doesn't recognize morals, which means they don't recognize man, okay? And they don't recognize you in the court. They only recognize your corporate entity that they created to feed off of. So that's the big difference between law and legal. And then if you don't want to fix the window or the TP, whatever, then the group of your peers have listened to this, and they would say, Jimmy or Jane, whoever the defendant is, why will you not fix the TP or window? You did the damage. You harmed this man or woman. You harmed their property. Why will you not? Is there some reason that you can't restore it back, right? Is there something that is stopping you from undoing the harm, right? Now, he may give you some legitimate excuse, like he lost both his arms yesterday in a hunting accident and he doesn't have the capacity to fix it. Okay, then I get that. Then we can work with that. But, if he says, I really hate this man or woman, and I really hated that TP, and I really hated that window, and that's why I did what I did. I do not apologize. I have no intention of restoring it. At that point, it becomes, that's where the outlaw came from. Okay, that's where the outlaw came from. Okay, is that you refuse to do what you need to do, and you cannot give a legitimate reason why you won't do it, and therefore you're showing no moral capacity. Basically, you are amoral, and you cannot be in this group of people, this moral group of people, because of the negativity of the amoral side of it. In other words, you don't give a damn about anybody else. And therefore, we're going to ask you to, once again, to either restore this or leave. Okay? You shall be banished from here because you cannot be trusted. Okay? And therefore, you're now an outlaw. You're outside the law. And this is what this whole judicial system that we're under now is outside of the law. Legal is outside of the law. Legal is designed to harm. Legal is amoral. Okay? And if we're going to have a society here of men and women who look out for each other, who, will get together and build a power plant, what they need, or whatever the need may be, it's food or whatever, that they're going to run these amoral idiots from Monsanto out of here, not just keep putting stuff up on Facebook and ranting on about it. We're actually going to remove these people from our particular neighborhood or our particular societies, because you have no moral guidepost. You are absolutely amoral. You are non-apologetic. You will not restore back to what you have destroyed. And therefore, you cannot be within our borders anymore. Okay, and move them out. And that's what we really have to strive for. I think we got to move them out. They are no mistake. They are outlaws. They are completely outside of the law. And that's life. And I do not believe I just rattled off for 2 hours on this. Anyways, before I forget, Hal's on deck at 3 o'clock. I want everybody to thank everybody that tuned in today. I want to thank DCFY for existing. I want to thank everybody in the chat. I want to thank the listeners, whoever you are. And, I hope it didn't bore you today. I just got thinking and talking. So,
to your face, happy